Hello, this is the voice of Stuart Pearce, and welcome to Deep Dialogues, a series of vital conversations that I have with global soul stewards from all over the world who provide us with an understanding of how we can create a new hierarchy of values that is absolutely significant at this unique time of becoming. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, 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 and the wonderful Tareth, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the most extraordinary gentleman sitting here, and I'm going to introduce him to you formally through just sharing with you his bio, which I'd sort of added a lot of superlatives to. Tareth and I have known each other for nearly 40 years, actually. So it's a great privilege to have a wonderful teacher and a man who's become, I believe, a dear friend. So thank you. And hi, Crypto Guru. Good to see you. So Tareth is a modern mystic, a Grail Crystal Keeper, a spiritual teacher, and musician who arises from a lineage of profound spiritual integrity. As a crystal keeper, Tareth has worked for many years aligning those who feel initiated to receive the essence and nature of divine composure, which essentially means to live as a human angel. Tareth believes that as we enter into the Aquarian Age, we have a unique opportunity to truly embody divine grace in human form. Tareth woke to the supernatural during a childhood near-death experience when divine truth entered his young form, and since then he has been gifted with the ability to produce healing oil and to work with celestial sona, celestial sound, appearing particularly through the crystals that are drawn to him, and often through great stones that are at remarkable earth energy centers like Glastonbury and Avebury Henge. Indeed, his extraordinary abilities have been scientifically tested, which recorded his gift to manifest subtle forms of matter from the immaterial world of spirit. This is wonderful to have you. The level of lineage that you bring in the extraordinary integrity of your work moves me very deeply. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you too. It's lovely to know you. It really is. We're soul family.
We're soul family, yes. And we, for those of you who don't know, you'll see that Tareth very, very kindly gave me the privilege of sitting with him last Wednesday in Glastonbury, where he's based, and recording on camera a remarkable conversation where he shared with us extraordinary information that will come forth eventually. So, Tareth, the Aquarian Age is here. You and I have been patiently waiting for this remarkable time. Did you feel that there was a shift of energy as you personally moved from the winter solstice into this great dawning of this new age?
Oh, very much so. Yes, I mean, it's something that I felt was going to come, as you did, but it really did. It was a magnificent shift, and it's a doors are opening in the consciousness of the earth and nature and us, and of course in the soul universe. And this is a time when, although I know there are many troubles and people get drowned in them because that's all that news is about, we have to remember that also this is really is the dawning of a very much big spiritual awakening that's going to change such a lot in the coming generations.
What specifically are you motivated by at this time? I mean, in the sense of what facet of your spiritual kaleidoscope do you feel yourself opening at this time?
I think the thing for me, that follows on from the whole meaning of the Grail path is this opportunity. I've done this work most of my life, but the opportunity to really now get people to understand, like in your introduction, the amazing gifts and the amazing inheritance they have inside them. Everybody is a mystic. because people think it's only people who can do mystical things, but it isn't. It's people who can contact and be in touch with the divine consciousness that changes so much. And it's a time when I know that more and more people, and to be able to help people step into this, it's because they're there, but they need to know it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
this to me is a great time. I mean, all my life I've worked in this, but to me, this is the beginning, even long after I've left this time, and I may be coming back. I don't know yet. But the point is, it's about getting people to realize just how much they can achieve and change and help the world move into the light.
Mm. Beautiful. And I noticed that you dropped in some very extraordinary constructs that are rich within us on an archetypal level, because we have legendary perspective, for example, about the Grail. And I just wondered if you could explain, for those of us who perhaps are questioning what exactly isn't that the cup of Christ? What is that exactly? I wonder if you could share your unique perspective.
Well, the Grail, I mean, I understand. I mean, the cup of Christ, of course, has been added to, like a lot of things do, but it goes much further. But I mean, to me, what Jesus did was to teach what we're teaching and what people before have taught, that, you know, as we know that saying, that the heaven is within and we have to find it. And that is the Grail. The Grail is the cup within, the heaven within, that we can manifest and bring into being and bring so much love into the world. To me, that's really the essence of the Grail work.
Mm, mm. And would you agree that as we look into this significance of the Grail, that we're really recognizing that deep within us on a cellular level is this divine blueprint of the Grail? And now we've reached this time factor, because we are living weight, space, and time on this planet. Many of us think, unfortunately, because we like to, literally shift those possibilities so that we move into fifth dimensional status, which, of course, we know is a prophecy, and we are beginning to do. But do you feel that the Grail has a particular residence in our bodies?
Oh, I think absolutely. The Grail is in our bodies because it's also in the earth. We talked of the crystalline energy of the earth, well, of other planets, but we're here, so let's talk of this one. The crystalline energy of the earth is a network of consciousness and intelligence that and vibration, without which we wouldn't have biological life here. It's all part of it. So everybody is a crystalline being as well as a biological being. And the more this comes forward, the more the Grail is present, because the Grail is that energy. It's the cup of life rather than a cup that just sits on a table.
Mm, mm. I remember many years ago that when the angels came to me in '87, you and I shared that we felt that the crystals that we see in solid form are actually solidified sound. And I
Yes.
think you have a very close relationship with crystals and with sound. I wonder.
No, absolutely. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. Oops, losing my headset. No, sound. I mean, everything has sound. We don't physically hear all of it, but everything that has vibration has sound. The crystal energy of the earth is a beautiful orchestra of sound, but it's not just sound, it's different frequencies of life and the ability to bring them together. And I think when I'm working with people, just as you are, different sounds that people start to feel bring together a doorway, and it opens. And each doorway that opens takes them into higher consciousness. So, and everything, everything that vibrates has sound. We don't have to hear all of it, but we feel it.
Mm, mm. And so I'm reminded in this minute that we really need to enhance the flow of water in our physiology so that the crystals within our bodies can actually be given their pathway of activation. And
Yes,
so do hear this, everybody. Drink more water, because we're essentially 95% water.
absolutely.
Because we know the silica in our body really responds, the crystals really respond to these primary aspects of our planet. Get earthed and drink lots of water, because here we are,
Yeah.
on this extraordinary breathing planet,
Mm.
where water is also one of the major constituents of our health.
Oh, indeed, yes. I mean, water is most of what we're made up of, and it's a wonderful holder of energies. For me, when I'm working with healing, when it gets to the physical part, when it's an energy, of course, that's spiritual. When it touches someone physically, it goes into the water and creates patterns that go everywhere they need it.
Mm, 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 mm. And rather like the field of cymatics, that automatically I would imagine that in that force, that organic form opens within the person, and maybe in many ways that's what we're referring to in
Mm,
terms of the divine blueprint, because you and I use certain sounds that
mm,
awaken certain aspects of
mm.
of the celestial blueprint within us, and
Yes,
therefore the angelic kingdoms begin to resonate through those qualities of both water and sound. Yeah.
I would 100% agree with that.
And of course, your association with the angelic communion is very defined and has been for many years. I wonder
Mm.
if you could touch on that for us.
Well, when it's also evolved, and I find that fascinating. For a good deal of my life, I worked with, because I was aware of the presence of 8 light beings. I called they what they told me was very interesting. Angelic beings. They said you can refer to as elders, not in an arrogant sense, because we're very ancient. But they said to me, don't think that we started like this. We became this by growth, and that's what humanity will do. We're here to tell you that we're not divided by a great chasm. We're all part of each other. And then a few years ago, I still have their presence. They said, we're still here, but we're going to become like a oneness, so
Mm,
that that part becomes magnified as well. And I feel so privileged to have had this in my life, but it's there for everybody. That's what I want to do, get everybody to know it's part of them as well.
mm, mm,
It's a bit as when we spoke, if I may put that in, that the idea of the round table and all the stories written, the round table represents the circle of light where everyone is equal around it, no matter what stage they've reached. Inside, they're all equal.
mm, mm. So, do you hear this, everybody? Hello, Sarah. Hello, Daniela, Katie, Lisa, Sue, and all you wonderful Julianne. All these wonderful people coming forth. Do you hear this? That the round table of the Knights of the Round Table is actually an expression of unity consciousness rather than the fixed point that we have in relation to the so-called legends that we've been provided for. And I know that Tareth has been given some very remarkable information about those particular legends, of the whole substance of Avalon. And we were talking about this on Wednesday, of course, when we came down. And of course, you had a very unique experience with the intimate nature of the so-called Knights of the Round Table, and the substance of the consciousness of Merlin,
Mm.
by a wonderful experience that you had in '93 when you were taken supernaturally, so to speak, to an area not far from the tour where a crystal was presented to you.
Yes, yes, it was the most in this life. It's the most amazing thing that's ever happened, well, I took a whole group, and it took their breath away. We were guided to a place we didn't know where it was going to be, but it was a place in the countryside in Glastonbury, but a place that had been an ancient place of meeting, and we prepared a meditation, and we did our meditation. We did some toning, and then some sounds appeared, and in the earth, suddenly, it was like it went dark first, then a hole appeared, and when that had vanished, there was a crystal sitting on the surface, which is a crystal, which is a part, in other words, a gift to say this crystal is directly from the source, from that, and it connects everything. It will help you connect with people, and for myself as well, because, as I said, the crystalline energy is in everybody. And
Mm,
that to me, I mean, I could say this because I know it inside. That's the real story of Excalibur. It
mm,
wasn't a sword. It's a crystal.
mm,
It was put back in the earth, and it comes out again,
mm, mm, mm.
because all matter is just energy.
Yeah. And you revealed also on Wednesday when we met that the section that you have
Mm.
is actually one part of a twofold unit, and the
Yes.
other part of the crystal is still within the soil, is still within
Yes. It's in the earth. I mean, I don't want people to think it's just like buried. It's in the earth as an energy. It's a
Mm,
crystal, but
mm,
it can be in two states. It can be solid or just energetic.
mm,
And when it appears physically, so the half in the earth and the half here, again saying there's no separation. We can
mm.
have a piece here and there. It joins together, and that's what's important in this work. I know you know it too. You bring things which appear to be in completely two different places. You bring them into unity,
Mm, mm,
which is what a lot of the quantum physicists are saying.
mm.
You know, there's not separation; it's just the way we look at it.
Yes. And you know, if we take that pretext and look at it in relation to all of the work that we're doing,
Mm,
particularly in relation to arousing the consciousness of people concerning their feeling states, that feeling is the language of the soul, and that how our feelings have so often been suspended over the millennia between the two aspects of, well, here is joy and here is woe. And of
mm,
course, what we're really talking about is the fact that the way that we perceive this, the way that we've experienced this, that we're now beginning to through emotional intelligence, we're bringing these two ideas together into one experience. So we reach back into unity consciousness of
yes.
a higher form of vibration,
Mm,
which is something beyond joy.
yes.
And
Which
we'll
is
be
the future. The future of the planet is
right,
that unity,
right,
the soul
right.
family, which will become a whole. It will be both one and everything, which has been said throughout history. I am one and all.
Absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Because as you speak it, you literally draw us into a Holy Communion where the
Mm,
separations and the schisms within our own psyche or within our own physiology come
mm,
into the oneness that you speak of. You have this inestimable ability of being able to do this. So we become mesmerized by this.
mm. Well, that's my hope, that to get more and more people realizing the wonders. We're still human. I don't tell people that they will become superhuman and walk around on the earth with everything going perfectly, but you will have a really different understanding of it all, because that wonders is the future. And isn't it, that's been taught by all the great teachers? You know, we've talked about this. They've been doctrinized, as it's always been done in history, to be separate, but they're not.
Hmm,
The doctrines
absolutely.
separate them, but they're all part of the oneness.
Hmm. So, are there particular techniques that and I know that there are very extraordinary techniques that you use in the sacred nature of your workshops and your great communions that you create. But just for us, as we sit looking at you from all around the world in our seeming geographical separation, are there any particular techniques that you can offer us just off the top of your head and from the bottom of your soul
Yes,
about how you feel we can guide ourselves into non-separation, back into unity consciousness?
I think the very simple one that I've always used, which is this, that, you know, I'd say a little, I don't make rules for people, but I do say, even if you can't put a lot of time aside, every day there should be time put aside to meditate and join. And there's a very simple thing that I use anyway in the workshops. People have been coming for years, but we still start. You breathe, a simple statement: I breathe in harmony with the breath of earth. And you feel it, because then you're breathing with all of it. And then you take that and you feel that all of that essence of earth and nature is breathing with you, and immediately you are grounded. Once you're grounded, I have a practice of breathing the light through all the chakras from base to crown, and breathing it gently. And as I do that, I think of the source of all creation, no matter where it is, or how you can't define it as solid, but all of it is part of that grounding. You don't go there first and come here. You go here and go there. And then when I've done that, I sit quietly, let it be. And then I always say, different wording, different times, but this wording, this is my sort of wording that I use, that to all those on this earth who are in their own way coming together to bring love and light and help the earth, I'm happy to serve and be part of that family. And if you do that every day, it gets stronger and you're adding to it. And it doesn't take long. You know, because people have said to me, I've got a busy life, I need to yes, you could do this in 15 minutes. I mean, I do longer, but 15 minutes of that is still adding to that unity.
Yes, yes. The strong director inside me says, we must do this once a day.
Yeah. But rather than that, let's just do it joyfully for the pleasure of it.
Oh, absolutely. It's just that so many people come to me, and you know, one of the first things that I move to is this beautiful option that you've just given us. And they say, oh, I couldn't possibly do that, you know, which I believe is one of the reasons why you and I use sound, because sound can bypass the disturbance of the cerebral mind, which is saying, oh, I can't do that, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. But as soon as we actually use the sound of our beings, that we automatically move back into flow, and we move back into harmony. So we don't need to think about it, we just feel it.
Feel it, and you know, you could even make a sound if you want. But I think sometimes people think they have to reach a state where they're not aware of anything. Don't keep doing that. Just be aware of the love and the beauty and the nature that you are part of. Don't try to always achieve that state of nothingness. If it comes, it's beautiful. But if you keep trying, the trying is getting in the way. You've got to flow into it over time.
And of course, you live in the most beautiful part of the world, the beautiful part of this island, to be able to facilitate that quality of deep stillness.
Yes.
Where we know is engendered by just a few moments of meditation. And as you say, please hear what Tareth is suggesting to us. The flow of the breath means that we allow our breath to become Mother Earth's breath. The circadian rhythms open to us. And so our hearts begin to beat with hers, and our breath begins to flow with hers. And of course, she introduces us to the bigger breath of the galaxy. And as a result of that, we become in alignment. So many of us are not in flow. And here is an opportunity, even though we've been through this experience of COVID, which I know you and I saw as a global pause rather than a lockdown, which enabled us to go deeper into the stillness of the Divine Mother.
Yes, absolutely. It's a beautiful, beautiful connection. And I don't think you can, for me, you can't go to heaven unless you go through the earth doorway.
Yeah, which is why we incarnated as earth beings. Right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Sound has been such a rich resource for you through your life. And I wonder if you would just share with us the significance, the essence, and also the mechanistic nature, meaning the way that you actually conjure sound.
Yes, well, in terms of the sound that manifests, first of all, it starts with the light, because even light has sound. I know scientists don't agree with that, but they're not always right. But light has sound, and the light, which also represents the angelic realm and all the things we're talking about, has sound. So what happened when I've done these sounds over years, and I've done many of them, which I still use in my work, is that I give myself 100% as a channel to the energy of the light, but I do it so that as it comes through, depending on the focus and the purpose, I also join to the whole crystalline grid of Earth. I get all that support, not just one crystal or another. And all those vibrations come together, usually in the heart center. When they come together, that which is esoteric or is consciousness or energy sound that you can't hear, the crystal sound helps it vibrate in the crystal energy, which then manifests as sound physical. And that's how it works. But it's something that I've brought with me to do. It's not something that I learned in one lifetime. It took a lot of times. But it doesn't, again, I want to emphasize, it doesn't mean that puts me above anybody. Everybody has it. And I just want them to enjoy what the sounds do for them.
Well, bless you. Thank you for your humility. I feel that we all perceive this in you, hence my statement about the very profound lineage that you arise from, because evidently within each incarnation, particularly over the last 12, you've been very conscious about the journey that you're taking to
Yes.
enhance, amplify, purify, to come to us at this time. And of course, that lineage has been very enraptured by a number of major teachers that we see now as bodhisattva living within the other
Yes.
dimensions.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could take us back into the sound of Egypt.
Mm.
I know that's
Well,
very alive in you.
that was such a big event. I was told in my meditation that I would be able. I didn't understand how physically I would be able to go to Egypt and go into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid and manifest sounds there that are not to do with the pharaohs or the pyramid, because as you know, the pharaohs made themselves the gods, but long before them, everyone knew the pyramid and the octahedron was a magical shape, and that it brought together heaven and earth, as above, so below. And I thought, that's amazing. How am I going to organize that? Because I don't know anybody there. And within a very short time, working in Belgium, I met a lady who was living in Belgium, but also lived part in Egypt, who had really good contacts. And as a result of that, I took a group of nearly 40 people, and we had to pay for it, but that was reasonable. She got us complete access to the Great Pyramid King Chamber. They closed it to the public for us for about 2 hours. And the sounds that manifested were there to say, this isn't about a pyramid, it's not about a tomb, it's not about pharaohs, it's about that people at this ancient time prepared things for this day, just as we're preparing things for the future. And I felt so humbled because it was such a great gift. I thought, I've been given this to do, it's amazing. And
Yeah, and I'm just playing with the idea. I feel it deep within me that I know that I've been in that chamber with you before, not in these lives, but in other lives.
Yes.
That we're able. I know that there's a certain sensitivity or circumspection about returning because of that extraordinary event that you've just illustrated for us. But I'd love to be back in that chamber with you chanting.
Maybe it will happen one day. I'm open to that entirely. I know that I won't go back and do any more sounds because that's not necessary. And it was just, you see, meeting that particular person, that's because it was all pre-planned more than what lifetimes ago, that we would come together just for that, because otherwise it would have been impossible. Yeah.
And you've referred to the pharaonic lineage and how you've just very aptly placed it into perspective. But if we go deeper into not the secular but the sacred side of ancient Egypt, were there any particular individuals that have come to you from that time that you were particularly interested in?
Well, the one that's the biggest one for me, different pronunciations. I say Tahote because that's how I was told, but Thoth, because Thoth Tahote said to me, I wasn't just an invention of mind. I was an incarnation. I was there. I taught, but like a lot of things, it's been rewritten to be something else. They made me a god, but I know we're all gods. And goddesses. So that was a key, because the same applies, the same applies to all the great teachers. They weren't the only God on earth. They were here to tell us we're all part of it. And Thoth or Tahote was a great step and helped me work with the pyramid, but also a great influence in connecting with this whole family that helps us, because they do help us.
And one of the, as you know, the master, as I call him, has been with me for 40 years and actually led me to meet the angels of Atlantis on the Glastonbury tour in '87. And that was the time when actually you were really flowing with those psychic phenomena workshops in London, moving to Glastonbury. It was 35 years ago. It's quite interesting.
Wow, yes.
And so much has changed since then. However, the feeling that I'm gaining, or the information that I'm gaining in meditation from the master, from Thoth, from Tahuti, from Jehuti, from the varying incarnations that he's lived, is that the possibility of the Christos, and in its form, the prophecy that we've been given about the second coming is not effectively working in the way that it was prophesied, that actually his quality of force is the Christos, and he's raining it, so to speak, or raying it into the empaths of the planet. And this is the beginning of the revolution of the empaths.
I totally agree, because again, and I respect everyone's point of view, their religion, but Jeshua, Jesus, was part of a group of the same heritage as all the others, and it is the second coming is not a physical second coming, because we're all here. We're all part of the family. So it's all now emerging, and it's a great time. Despite the difficulties going on, I'm optimistic for the future.
Yeah. So it's very fascinating, isn't it, that we've actually used the screen of our consciousness out there over the last 1,000 years, particularly, and we know beyond, but particularly the 1,000 years, to project onto that consciousness individuals that have fulfilled the role of the patriarchy. Now, all of that is changing.
Yes.
Developing a new hierarchy of values, hierarchy meaning the rule of the sacred. So we're beginning to see how the sacred comes back into play. So we all come together in the great soul family of the planet. And through not necessarily doing, but by being whom we are in the faith, the belief, and the trust of that we radiate an energy of such implicit unity consciousness that the inclusivity, the compassion, the empathy, and of course the exquisite unconditional love that we all dream of begins to manifest so openly within our bodies.
Absolutely. I can't add to that. It's a perfect statement.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. This is what I've been dreaming of. And in fact, I would love to get 33,000 people in a great canyon somewhere in the United States.
That would be wonderful.
They're rather like, I always see the canyons as being rather like Mother Earth's ears, and chanting together, the Om together with these essential feelings and principles totally within our bodies. Do you have a particular dream of an achievement? We've talked about being in the King's Chamber. Do you have a...
It's interesting you say that, because I think because all the transitions going on, there's lots of dreams and lots of places. I agree with you about one of the, sort of like the canyons and places like that. But I think the thing now is, it's almost like whatever we decided or decided to do, it wouldn't matter where it was, it would work, because it's all opening up now. It really is. I mean, when I worked at Avebury with sounds, it was magical, and I loved it, and I was guided to it. I didn't know I was going to do it, but now it seems to me almost everywhere. The world is full of wonderful places. At the same time, just so that people listening can know, sitting in your own living room and connecting is still wonderful. So you don't have to go there in order to be there.
Yeah.
You're already there.
Yes. So we can easily teleport ourselves through thought being a living energy.
Just by thought, yeah. But I have a feeling something might come up, and if it does, I will leap at it with pleasure.
And of course, we're mentioning Earth energy centers that maybe some of our dear audience aren't fully conscious of.
Yes.
We talked about Glastonbury and Glastonbury Tour, and you've just mentioned Avebury. Could you perhaps give your perspective on the significance of Avebury as an Earth energy center?
Well, I think the Earth has lots of ley lines which are like meridians of the body. In fact, I've worked with people. I've even produced sounds in the past of meridians of the Earth, or ley lines in the body, and they are part of the communication. And it's not that the energy is only confined there, but on those lines, there are concentrated doorways, and therefore an ancient people, who I remember when I was at school were called primitive, were wise to that. So they did honor those places, and they honored them and helped to create those doorways. So of course monuments have been put there and things, but they're places where the meridians or the ley lines meet, but they're not, when you link to it, you're joining to everything. And therefore, I think it's lovely to go there. I went physically to those places, but actually, even for people who can't, say if someone is in some way not able to travel or has got some disability, I take them there in their head. Because but I think it's wonderful that ancient people marked these places, because, you know, I'm afraid, I mean, I know I respect everyone's point of view, but I do not believe, as many people do, that places like Stonehenge were actually made by extraterrestrials. Those people were happy to give their life to creating those places because they knew it was important for the future as well. And it's a wonder. And of course, there are unmarked places, but to have a place like that, but it connects us to everything. And it's wonderful, you know.
And the significance of Glastonbury and Avebury, of course, have these two very powerful lays, don't they? The Michael Berry lays.
Yes, they do.
That, you know, all of my teaching, all of the revelations that I've been given, suggests that they actually come from Giza and weave their way up through over the, you know, along the North African coastline. And these were the vital routes that the temple workers took when the temples were closed down eventually in ancient Egypt for the next stage of evolution. And they wove their way up through the Straits of Gibraltar into southern Spain and through the Central Massif, and then eventually through Mont Saint-Michel, Mount St. Michael, and they go literally on a diagonal all the way through and meet or make love on Glastonbury Tor and at Avebury.
I think that's right. They are powerful places because of all these meetings, and I feel so honored to even live near them, you know.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But then wherever I go, they're with me anyway, as they are with everybody. So as I said, anyone who can travel and go to those places, if you can go, do it. But if you can't, go there in here. You won't be left out.
And you know what comes to the forefront of my consciousness as you speak this is that perhaps what we need to do as a point of spiritual practice in our devotion, our dedication, and our discipleship is that we create our own mini vortex in our own homes, within our meditation rooms or our sanctuaries, where when we stand with the converging of this of the energies within this vortex, we're immediately teleported to any of the big pulse points that we're referring to by traveling literally along the lines, I guess, in the way that we as ancient shaman or magicians like Merlin, that we were able to do. We just simply joined the lay and we moved on the lay.
Well, again, that's why it's important to give a little time each day to connecting. Because when you connect, you can do this. And the more people that do it, the bigger it grows.
Yes.
I think it's, you know, the way you've put it is beautiful. Thank you.
And you mentioned ET, and of course we've referred to it once or twice during our conversation this evening, or this afternoon if you're on the Eastern Seaboard, or in, you know, the Western Seaboard. I know one or two people. Katie, I think you're not south of Los Angeles, I think, or something. Just trying to find you geographically. Where are you? That we know that we're beginning to understand that we are part of a galactic union.
Yes.
And there's nothing unusual about extraterrestrial beings.
No, not at all.
Other than the fact that possibly they have a much more advanced technology than ours, which enables them to travel through antimatter into matter.
Yes.
And therefore appear at places like Avebury, Henge.
Yes, I think this is the thing about extraterrestrial, what I call the real extraterrestrials, not the stuff that some people put out. I think they do it on purpose to distract us. Extraterrestrial travel only happens when the planet that you're on becomes a soul family. It's a mind travel. The minds can combine, form a sort of, I don't like calling them UFOs, that can travel and jump across huge distances instantly and then be there. And their role is only to give love and message. You know, they don't come and do nasty things. They're coming to say, we are part of you, you're part of us. But of course, a lot of the authorities have covered that up with all kinds of stories.
Yes, yes. I
Which
had
is a shame.
very unusual experience. I say unusual, it seemed very usual as well. You know what I mean, that the supernatural suddenly becomes very natural.
Mm.
The human side of us loves to get caught up in the drama, but actually when we when we examine it, it's well, yeah, I mean, why not? I met a group of beings known as the Hathors who suggested they came from a galaxy beyond our galaxy. And they were suggesting to me that many of the individuals or the beings that they'd met in unity consciousness throughout the galaxy looked on we humans with awe because they didn't have bodies.
I think there would be, because it's relative, isn't it? This is the thing, relative points of view, and we've got to remember that it's not just one thing all the time. It is the relativity, which, you know, in science shook the world. I mean, I actually believe that Albert Einstein was divinely inspired to see that, because he showed that time is not fixed, you know. And I think it's so the relativity of what they see in us and we see in them, it's all valid. You know, it's not like superior beings coming down and saying, look at us, we're very superior. No, they've got things we don't have yet, and we will have. We've got things they don't have, and we're all helping each other.
Yeah, yeah.
All the time.
The more we can open up this level of seership, this level of perspective, this level of vision, I feel the more enhanced our gestation process, our evolution process becomes.
Yes.
The very fact that we have non-physical, non-local beings looking at us with awe because we are local and physical.
Yes, absolutely.
That they're living purely through that high vibration of mental capacity.
Yes.
Whereas here we are in the density of weight, space, and time. Not that that's wrong. It's quite heavy imaging, as we know.
Yeah.
And they say, "How did you do that? How did you do that? How did you do that?"
Yes, I like that. Yeah, I think it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to see both sides of the coin, isn't it? Rather than it's this sacred division where they're up there and we're down here. Well, we're not actually. We're here for a while, but we're doing other things as well.
Do you feel that within your own soul that you've had experience of many intergalactic lives?
Yes, I do. I can't say that I can sort of detail them in things, but I know I've had them. And what I see is that gives me what it gives me is what I do to help other people. It's not about I'm not interested in trying to trace it like a family tree. If it was meant for me to know that way, I'd know. I know that I feel part of a family out there, but so is everybody, and I want everyone else to feel it. Nobody is wholly of Earth. You know, not you know, of Earth, yes, but not exclusively. Everybody has in them something of the essence of the consciousness that is everywhere. We're all part of it.
As I said earlier, I've been very fortunate to have been able to be with you over the years and see you engage in your leadership of us, in knowing that you're not separate from us, but just simply leading us. Because
of course not.
You have points of definition that are always very immaculate and resonate through huge capacity.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's true. Now I've lost the point of my question. It was when we were talking about ETs and okay, it's gone. Coming back to sound, I know that you've had a very close relationship with material sound as a musician for many years. When did that first begin?
Oh, interestingly, as a child, we had a piano in the house, and my sister did the lessons and played classical. I discovered, well, I didn't discover, did it? I could hear like something on the radio, if not classical music so much, that's harder, but I could hear a song and I could play it. And that's how I work now. I play guitar and keyboards, but I I know I can read chords now, but I've never had training. I've just had this love of music and play and write songs. To me, it's for the pleasure of doing it. It's another spiritual thing. I love it. I love words, very much words. I always read a lot of poetry and I write poetry. So my songs are words that come to me and a tune comes to me, and I do it for the sheer pleasure of it. Sometimes even at the end of a workshop with my friend Martin, who comes, he's a great guitar player, we put on a little concert at the evening and people come in, but not for the grandeur of it, just for the fact that it's another way of sharing.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
And do you feel that sound as an energy, a great gift from the divine, is a way of being able to bring this communion and unity consciousness into a greater point of definition between us?
Oh, 100%. You know, it doesn't have to be music, any type of sound, because we've all got different tastes, but it doesn't matter. Sound goes through the divisions, it joins, it unites, because everything, as I said earlier, has sound in it. You know, so it's a great uniter of everything. And every human being, in whichever body they're in at the time, that body has its melody, and it's a unique one for each of us. But underneath the unique one is the one that we all share. So I think that that's exactly it. Sound is in everything, and it's a beautiful gift.
So, am I right in saying that what we're seeing, as in many ways, as God says, is reported to have said in Genesis, when he instructed Adam to name everything in the garden, that sound brought about the definition of that's apple, that's tree, that's snake, that's earth, that's soil. There is a diversification in that, and sometimes that diversification can lead us to diffusion and confusion rather than. But it seems to me that in the way that you speak of melody, that although melody can be individualized, that lying beneath the melody is a point of unification that brings everything back into 0 point.
I 100% agree with that. It's like that. Also, that statement, in the beginning was the word. Well, that means sound was there. It had some kind of form even before matter came into being.
Many years ago, I was drawn, when I was really preparing the first book, The Alchemy of Voice, which I suppose was at the end of the 80s when I met the angels. I was drawn to Aramaic because Aramaic was a language, sacred language that I always loved listening to and hearing. But I was drawn to, again, in those very serendipitous and synchronistic ways, I was drawn to a wonderful man called Professor Sekeli, who was one of the world's leading Aramaic scholars, who was teaching at the Sorbonne at that time. He was very, very old. And he was, I believe he was formerly Hungarian, and he had this little voice like this. And he told me about the fact that he had been at the Qumran caves when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, which, as we know, were a repository of the Essene community that lived in that area. And that he'd read a scroll, that many of these scrolls had actually been taken not to the museum in Jerusalem, but into the Vatican vaults. And so he had readership of the Vatican Library for, I think, about 10 years. And one day he was moving through a series of scrolls, literally, not through the microfilm, but literally. And he read, "In the beginning was sound, and the sound was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth." So he told this wonderful story about the fact that the sound, in its purest sense, as we speak it, then was formulated by the early Greeks into the substance of kenosis, or logos, which means the intelligibility of the sound. So the word became the really important form rather than the sound. And here we are getting back to the sound.
I know, that's amazing. It's interesting you say that, because again, it's only a thought that I've had. I've never been sure, but you say something there, but the Dead Sea Scrolls and other things, I think a lot of what was written was locked away and they don't want us to know.
Indeed. Very much so.
Because it would spoil all their doctrines.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But we know inside anyway. That's what matters.
Well, this was the question that I wanted to ask, which suddenly just evaporated, because you've used the idea of knowing and the context of knowing
Mm,
on, I think, 7 occasions through our conversation this evening.
mm,
And
mm,
the notion of knowing is, for me, has always been so complete within you that when you say, I don't know how that happened, but I knew it would.
mm. I
Um,
know it's very difficult to define. I mean, we all have knowing. I think it's there, and I think again, I want people to understand they have it. It's not knowing necessarily, in technical details. It's a deep knowing inside, and the more people that part of me it wants to teach, and also I learn when I teach. We had that dialogue before, but you can't be a teacher unless you're learning, and I think that knowing needs to grow in people because it's there. It's
mm,
there. It needs to come out.
mm.
And that will give people even more freedom. And the people who don't like freedom won't be able to take it away.
Mm. Wonderful, beautiful. Could you perhaps address the degrees of your knowing? What allows you to know that you know?
Well, part of it is what I've brought with me because it's learned over lifetimes. And part of it is being willing to totally put aside concepts and let things come in. I will put aside all the concepts, even if I thought they were real, and just say, there's an open door. Let's see what comes through. And I think that's something we all need to be able to, well, lots of people are doing it. And I think it's good to do that. You might, not that you're wrong, but you think, well, I've got this and that, but maybe there's more. Let's put that aside for a bit. This is the meditation again. Put aside everything and see what comes to you. That's what revelation means to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so my experience of this as you speak it, as I feel within my own kinesthesia, what you're experiencing, is that the knowing that you have is a very, very deep sensation in the
Mm,
feeling capacity of your being,
mm.
where intelligence reaches a point of such deep understanding or apprehension that there is no doubt. You have complete faith in that knowing.
Yes. A complete faith comes when you do that, I think. And it's not like just information, it's a deep feeling. And then you express it. You express it also, I think, when you're doing it, and I advise this to other people, express it with love. Don't have a concern who listens and who doesn't. All you're doing is trying to help.
So what we're really discerning is that feeling is the language of the soul.
Yes, I think that's
Rather
absolutely.
than the cleverness of all the intellect, which of
Yes.
course can have a great deal of joy
Oh,
associated.
yes, yes, it
At
does.
the same time, as we've often alluded through our conversation this evening, it sometimes leads us towards division, where we get constipated by the construct.
Yes,
And
I like that. Constipated by the construct is a lovely expression. That's a good title for a workshop.
now, well, there we are. Maybe that's what we're going to do. And so we return to the great inspiration of
Mm,
that wonderful Atlantean genius that manifested in the form of Albert Einstein.
yes,
That when he said that imagination is infinitely more important,
yes, I
And
know.
I love that wonderful story that I was reminded of just at the end of last year with Jean Houston when she met Einstein. Can you imagine?
Mm,
A woman is alive that met Einstein.
wow.
And the great story was when his students approached him and said, "But master, what book should we read?" Thinking that he was going to inform them of Max Planck and Eric,
Mm.
the great physicists of that time. He said, "No, read fairy tales." And they thought that he'd misheard.
I
So,
love it.
no, master, what book should we read? And he said, "Read fairy tales."
Yeah, I love that. I know. I love it.
But once and of course, William Blake, as we know, I'm mixing
Yeah,
metaphors now, but he spoke so wonderfully about the field of imagination that
indeed.
if
Yeah,
the faculties of our perception is expanded, we see life
exactly.
truly as it is.
Yeah.
Um, and that deep level of knowing for you opens up the playfulness and the
Yes.
imagination that
Yeah.
is at the very heart of your creative endeavor.
Mm.
Because, I mean, maybe there are some people listening in this evening But I once had the most extraordinary opportunity of being at one of Tareth's workshops, where we rose and rose and rose in the sensibility of consciousness through meditation. You lead the most extraordinary meditations. And I remember seeing, I can't remember what the instruction was, but you spoke of a sound language which was full of light, which sounded just as though we were whizzing back 1,000 years or to the 4th or 5th century with the ancient ones that I know we played with, like Merlin and Morgana and so forth. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are drawing, unfortunately, to the end of this conversation. There will be many more, I'm sure. But if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box. Unfortunately, you can't see the chat box, Tareth, but I can.
That's fine. I don't need to see it. As long as you can.
What I'll do is I'll just spout forth when the questions come up.
Yes, of course.
Oh, here's an interesting observation from Lynn, which I'll share with you. My ex, she says, worked in the Arctic. Oh, here we are. Worked in the Arctic for a while. He said he climbed a small mountain. He stood on the top, and it was the first time he heard silence. He always said it was loud, and the first time that he'd heard God.
Wow.
That's wonderful. I can marry with that as well, because I once had the fortune of meeting Ranulph Fiennes, who's climbed Everest 3 times. I said to him, surely once is enough. And he said, oh, no, there's an energy there. There's an energy at the top that makes the climb worthwhile. So I said, well, what's that? He said, well, I'm not a religious man. And I said, well, good, so neither am I. What?
Nor am I. I mean, look at there's a famous song, "The Sound of Silence."
Yeah, absolutely. So he spoke about this exquisite silence and the stillness thereof. And although I'm not a religious man, I feel that I'm talking with God. So
I love that.
Lynn, your ex, my ex, I find that very, very funny, had a wonderful experience. Any questions, anybody? Any questions? Tareth is here right now. Okay, lots of wonderful concurring with us.
That's good to know.
I love the fact that we've opened up this field of resonance, which creates this beautiful field of the unified field of light.
It's nice.
I know that you've shared with me that you're really looking forward to a time when we can reach back into workshop situations that aren't just online. I wondered if you had a dream of your next workshop and what it may be, so that people get excited about attending.
Interestingly enough, it's not totally formed yet, but after our recent talk, this one about the crystal, because it's always been there, but I was told to let it be for a while, but I'm going to get back to working with this crystal that was given, because it's a very powerful way of really helping people make that connection. So that will come back into use, but that has to be in the room. It can't work on Zoom or this. So that's one thing. There's other things that I haven't formed yet, but that is going to be something I'm really looking forward to doing again. It's time for it to be in the room and get people to really feel it. Yes.
And absolutely. I mean, thank you. I was hoping that psychically, I was hoping that you would mention this. And this is going to be, because I feel, having been with you on Wednesday and having sat for those 2 hours, 3 hours with the crystal between us, and then you allowed me to hold it, that it is, I've been privileged to holding other sacred vessels around our planet. And I feel that the pulsation that arises from the crystal that you are the keeper of at this time is one of the most amazing devices for the awakening of greater alignments within the crystalline grid. Not that the crystals need aligning, we need aligning.
And to me, it had a time, and then it had a rest because it was needed, not because I didn't want people to have it. That's what I was guided. But now it's the time to get it back out there and let people really feel those energies for them, to grow and to expand. It's going to be beautiful and magical. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
which we'll have a talk about it another time.
Yes, absolutely. And, Tareth very, very kindly very generously allowed me to film him on Wednesday after our conversations film. So, ladies and gentlemen, you will be able to experience this. We're just going this week into a process of editing. So the crystal that we're speaking of, as you probably realized that Tareth is speaking of, that he is the Grail Crystal Keeper of, there is huge import for you. So you can use that to trigger your imagination. Many of these wonderful people are asking how to get hold of Tareth. Could you perhaps mention your website, please?
Yeah, it's very simple. Well, if you put Tareth in Google, it comes up anyway, do the simple way, but it's www.tareth.co.uk. And if you put Tareth in, it comes up. The website needs a bit of renovating, but it's still there and you can contact me that way. There we are. It's on the screen now.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan's always on the ball. Thank
Absolutely. It's there. Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I know that you felt extraordinary points of complementarity. You feel the resonance that's arising from Tareth as an extraordinary modern mystic, teacher, and Grail Crystal Keeper. Thank you for being with us. And please do tune into his website, as you were seeing, www.tareth.co.uk. There it is again on our screen. And don't forget that on June 19th and 20th, which is nigh, my dear tech manager is psychically in touch with me, so he's put up
That's lovely.
The link. There will be my rendition, a sacred retreat. We're not going to Egypt as we've done on the last two occasions. We're going to be just prior to the summer solstice at Glastonbury and at Avebury, with the Angels of Atlantis perspective of their way to the Holy Grail. So please do go online and touch into this. We're going to have extraordinary times, ritual meditation, sonic meditations at both this wonderful glass mountain and also at Avebury Henge, which for me is like my home. And I promised that there will be remarkable crop circles for us to view at Avebury Henge at that time. So I'll be sharing that with you, Tareth. Tareth, bless you. I love you deeply. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful sharing this time with you.
For me too, really. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Absolutely. So stay where you are, and farewell, Diane, and all you wonderful people. Daniela, Anika, Laura, Jackie, Janice. Bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.